Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Salt and Burn This, the Supernatural Rewatch podcast. I'm Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
Welcome back. So, before we get into this episode, I want to do a small, I don't know what to call it, callback or whatever. It was something I had noticed when I was editing our second episode, the Wendigo one. And I just want to make clear I kind of came off as if I were like really hating on the girl, the guest star girl in that
Oh,
episode.
really?
Yes,
Huh.
I felt that way, but I just want to make it clear I wasn't hating on the girl. I was hating on the writers making her into not a very well-rounded character.
Okay. Okay. It's funny you say that. I didn't feel that coming from you.
Well, yeah, well, you know me, so.
Yes.
So for anyone who maybe doesn't, I was not trying to be like a quote-unquote girl hater because I don't like girl hate.
Sammy is not a girl hater at all.
No, I used to be, but I've since moved away from that, thankfully. Because sadly, it's something that I think we as women are like conditioned with.
Absolutely. It's
Grown up.
competition.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
You
And I
compete
hate it.
with other women. Yeah.
Yes, and it's something I'm constantly trying to check myself out of, or even trying to help check others out of. So just to make that clear, I was not girl hating on the girl. I was writer hating.
Even though they're women.
No,
No.
not that one. That one was to,
Oh no, that you are correct. Yeah, that was men. I beg your pardon. I
or at
jumped
least
ahead.
one guy. I'm not sure if Terry Hughes Burton is a girl or a guy. Or gendered or non-binary. I don't know. I don't know what they consider themselves as.
My mistake. You are correct with your apology. I was wrong with trying to correct. Okay, moving on.
Moving on. All right. So I don't really have. I mean, since the last time we recorded, it's been what, New Year's. New Year's passed since the last time.
Yeah.
In between. So happy
Yep.
no
Good to
longer
see you.
2020. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye 2020.
Yes. Get
Bye-bye.
out. Not that
done.
it's any better this year.
There's glimmers. There's glimmers of better.
Yeah,
We
glimmers
have
of better, and some massive instances of not better,
Yes.
that have since happened.
But
So,
moving
yeah.
on to the podcast.
Moving on to the podcast and the episode and why we're doing this. Let's go right into dissecting episode 4, Phantom Traveler.
Can I just do a spoiler alert from the very beginning?
Yes.
The name of this episode should have been... Oh god, I just forgot the name of the show. I was so ready to be like snotty. The name of this episode should have been Final Destination.
Oh, you are so right. You are so right.
Sorry it took me so long to get there. But definitely this should have just been called Final Destination.
Yeah, I'm kind of noticing with the titles in at least this first season, they're not as cheeky as they end up being later on. They do like puns and plays on words and things like that. There's kind of none of that in the first season.
Yeah, I think they're taking their monsters very seriously.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so this episode was written by Richard Hatem. Apologies, don't know how to pronounce the last name. Directed by Robert Sanger.
Bobby.
Description, and this is according to the DVD box because I no longer trust the Netflix one.
Because it's wrong. Yes.
It's wrong again?
Yeah.
Oh my god. So the DVD one is: a plane reservation is a ticket to terror when a phantom traveler forces a jet into a crash landing. Knowing the phantom is on another flight, Sam and Dean board to attempt an in-air exorcism.
Wow. That's actually right.
You think?
Yeah.
I would hope so on the DVD box set that it would be.
Yeah, the one on Netflix is wrong.
Jesus.
I won't even read it.
It's okay, wrong. Good. Then Netflix, you're dead to us.
That's right. Although
it's
good
except
for
when we need, yeah.
It's good to validate our superiority.
Yes.
Our feelings of superiority over Netflix.
Yes. This one also did come with a commentary. And it was
Oh.
by Jared and Jensen. The
Oh, that must have been
Yeah, Sam
great.
and Dean. It was 86% them busting each other's balls through the whole time.
As well it should be.
Yeah.
As well it should be. So I have to say, I love the way this episode starts with like a sweaty traveler.
Yeah.
Somebody who's clearly in an airport and not happy to be there,
Mhm.
sweating profusely, not looking good, pale. It's like off to a good start.
Right.
Sweaty traveler goes to the bathroom to splash water on his face and kind of give himself a pep talk. And another guy coming out of a stall gives him that stupid pep talk of, oh, don't worry about flying. What are the odds of a plane crashing? 20,000 to 1, which is the dumbest thing ever to say
Mhm.
because no one wants to talk about plane crashes. But here's the thing I didn't like about this guy: he didn't wash his
No, I was
hands.
just gonna say that. He just gets a paper towel and wipes his hands off.
Absolutely. Toilet flush, comes out, wipes his hand on a paper towel, gives crappy, snotty advice, and walks away. And I was just like, he didn't wash his hands.
Yeah, he's just the worst kind of person.
Yes. All the way around.
Unsolicited advice,
Yes.
gross hands.
Gross.
Don't want to be this guy.
First time we see demon smoke.
Yes, which is totally different than what it
It's very
events.
beady.
Yes.
It's
It
like almost like liquid water, I almost said. It's almost it's not as wispy and smoky. It's a little bit more,
Yeah. Yeah,
granulated.
I thought it kind of looked like bugs a little bit, like a swarm of bugs, and there was like
Yes.
infesting you, when it,
Yep.
started getting into his eyeballs
It also went in through his eyes.
instead of his mouth. Yes, which
Yep.
spoiler alert, that's
That's how they do it in the
eventually
future.
that's that just becomes the demon thing is
Mhm.
just a note on the opening scene from the commentary, the boys' commentary. And it was like the opening line essentially, which I knew. I was like, oh boy, this is just going to be nothing but jokes.
Oh, I love it.
So it opens up, with at the poster behind the sweaty guy, and it's like
Yeah.
tropical island, palm trees in the ocean, and one of them was like, oh, remember when they flew us to Hawaii? Yeah, that was a good time.
Oh, God.
It's great.
The other half, how the other
Like,
half
oh
was.
my god, they're jokes. They did it. I
So
mean, I think that was the joke. It's like, oh, we didn't actually go
we
to
never
Hawaii.
actually
Yeah.
got to go. What's funny is I remember there was a time in the 80s, I'm hoping it was only the 80s, where those types of murals were the popular thing to have as like wallpaper.
Hmm.
So there was an apartment in my building where they had one of those like Hawaiian landscapes posters. That
Mm-hmm.
was the entire front of their house. Like that was the entire front of their apartment was this picture,
Wow.
like wallpapered up. But it was cool back then.
I believe you. I
Okay,
believe you.
that was the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, and they also mentioned, and this was something that I didn't really think about, but they were talking about the sweaty guy, and they're like, "Oh, look, another fabulous guest actor that we never got to meet." I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess like a lot of these opening scenes, the teasers as they were calling them, no,
Hmm.
they're never actually there. It's always somebody else."
Yeah,
And
it's
there's like
it's the
guest stars every single episode, especially in this first season, It's just those two are the only stable characters.
it's because they usually all die before Sam and
Yeah,
Dean come
exactly. Yeah.
on site.
I know. And it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Like, if there's just a lot of actors on this show that they
Never
never
actually get to
act
do
with.
scenes. Yeah,
Yeah.
never get any FaceTime with the stars.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like, the red shirt characters on Star Trek. Anybody who's in the opening sequence is going to die,
Yeah. Yeah.
or be horribly traumatized by the
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah. Well, Law and Order does it too, and CSI. I mean, there's a lot of shows that do it like that, but
Right.
I just never thought about the fact that they don't really get integrated with the main cast.
Right. Right. That is a bummer. You've been cast on Supernatural. This is great. Oh. You die in the first 30 seconds.
Yep.
So the guy we've said that, the black demon smoke has entered this nervous flyer,
Hmm.
and suddenly he's not so nervous anymore, obviously, because he now has black demon in him.
Mm-hmm.
He boards the plane, and there's a stewardess who, they used to take your ticket and tell you where to sit. I don't know if they do it anymore. And usually they're just like,
No.
just get on the plane.
Yeah. I
Just
know.
your
Yeah.
bag is
There's.
too big. You should have checked that. It's
Yeah.
less welcoming, more perfunctory. But she's checking, your ticket, letting you know where your seat is, and she notices that this guy has black demon eyes. But
Mm.
she reacts to it, but she doesn't react more than, oh, next person in line.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I took that as maybe she thought that she saw
Didn't see
something.
it.
Yeah, didn't see
Yeah.
it. She's like, well, that must have been my mind playing tricks on me.
The next thing that happens is the plane's in the air, and nervous flyer guy asks the woman next to him, sitting in the seat, who she also looks quite nervous, by the way.
Yeah.
Nervous or constipated. I couldn't quite tell what she was experiencing sitting in that seat. He turns to her and he says, how long have we been in the air? And she says, oh, about 40 minutes. And his response is, wow, time really does fly. Maybe I
Yuck,
should get up and
yuck,
stretch
yuck,
my
yuck,
legs.
yuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guy gets up to stretch his legs and walks to the back of the plane and then goes directly to the emergency exit door. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to say that as a frequent traveler, it always bothers me when people go and stand by the emergency exit door. Always bothers me. Now, granted, there is a sequence of things you have to do in order to open said door.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of like jiggle the handle,
Right.
and then open the door. But he does. The nervous traveler with the demon eyes opens the emergency exit door and blows the back of the plane off, forcing it to crash. I'm gonna also, spoiler alert, I going back over my notes, this may be me tearing apart an episode a little too much, like nitpicking a few too many things. So I
Uh-huh.
apologize in advance if it feels like I'm just being um snotty here. I'm not. I'm just pointing some things out that as I'm watching an episode, because of the way it was made, it takes me out of the storytelling.
Mm.
So that's only reason I point these things out. It's not because I think I'm smart and I'm the only one who's seeing these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just moments of me going, "Oh," and it, you know, takes me out of the storytelling.
For
So,
sure.
and that door moment was actually one of them, but because they address it later in the episode,
Mm-hmm.
that it must have taken superhuman strength to open the emergency exit door. It's like, well, okay.
Yeah. So then the next shot after the crash landing is Dean in booty shorts, which
I know.
I was not upset about personally.
No. In fact, it's the first time we see him wake up and not be like angry. you know?
Yeah. And
Um,
his hair is a disaster.
yes.
Dean was funny in this episode. This was, I have to
I,
say, the first episode I've seen a lot of humor get integrated
yeah.
into
Yeah.
mostly Dean, but
Yeah, Sam kind of took the lead in being the serious person. He's
yeah.
still bothered by not being able to sleep because of Jess's death,
Uh-huh.
and why can't we find her? So Sam is the one who's having the internal crisis.
Yeah.
He's kind of in fight mode as opposed to let's see what happens next mode, which is what
Mm-hmm.
Dean is in,
Yeah.
with the exception of this huge blade under Dean's pillow. Dean is acting very casual in his, this is what our life is. No, this life doesn't really affect me all that much. And Sam like pulls out a giant knife from underneath Dean's pillow, and he's like, "You're not affected by
Yeah, yeah,
by
yeah.
our lifestyle." It's like, well, it was kind of a Crocodile Dundee moment. That's not a knife. No, that's a knife. It was a little bit of that moment. That's what,
Yeah.
God, that knife was so big.
Yeah. And you know what? Going back to the commentary for a second, I was totally expecting them to just riff on each other about those shorts. Not one mention between the two boys about
Of camera
Jensen.
panning up
Yeah.
his ass.
Yes.
And well, again, I'm not disappointed in their choice of opening scenes for that.
No.
So thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad it wasn't me who said it. So they get a phone call, like in the middle of their just morning talks. They get a phone call from Kittanning, Pennsylvania. Did I say it right?
I don't know. But I didn't catch where they were going.
They are going to Katanning, Pennsylvania. That's where the guy called from. The
Oh,
friend
okay.
of the friend of
Where was that? Was that on their phone or something? Was it the caller ID?
it yes. Yes, because
Oh.
Dean like looks at his phone, he goes, Katanning, you
Oh,
know,
okay. I missed that.
and then he kind of pieces together
Yeah, it was
who the guy
a
is.
previous client,
Mhm.
we shall say.
Mhm.
Which I like when they do that, when they have like someone who's, "Okay, you helped
Go
me out with
surreal.
the weird thing before. I don't need the talk," that goes
Right,
surreal.
exactly. Exactly. I love that. That's also exposition that we don't need,
Yeah.
because
Right.
we know what Sam and Dean do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I do love that. It's kind of like they're in on the joke, and I don't mean the joke as in haha, but it's like they're
Uh-huh.
in on it, and I
Uh-huh.
love that. It's like more people are included in our little world.
Yeah.
So they decide to this guy who calls from Pennsylvania says a friend of mine was on a plane piloting a plane that crashed, but I think you guys should come down here. There's something
Yeah.
weird about this plane crash. And so they decide to go. But because it has to do with planes and the FAA and aviation, they decide to go get new IDs. Right. So Dean decides this is ID number 4.
It is?
And it's Homeland Security. They decide to be Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't catch if they said names.
I don't think they did. I didn't catch those either.
Okay. But I have to say, Dean coming out of the photocopy store where he's been making these fake IDs, ogles a girl
Yep.
as he's coming out of the store. He gives her ass a check.
Uh-huh.
I was like, God, they had to throw that in there. He's still a horn dog.
And in the commentary, Jared said, "Oh, there's Jensen making a move." And Jensen was like, "Yep, always checking out the girls, man." So
Oh my, they
they
do it.
they knew it too.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny because I was like, he did.
He
And
did.
he even did did the silent face like, whoa,
Yes.
Go Dean, still horn dog.
Yep. Even though that's like I think the flight attendant later, but for the most part of this episode, there's like no female characters. It's all
Well, right. Right. And then we only see her for a nanosecond as she opens the door and goes into the
yes.
photocopy shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they make it to Pennsylvania and they talk face to face with the friend. What was his name? Jerry Panowski.
Yeah, I
That's the
think
actor's
so.
name. Is that the actor's
No,
name?
that's
That's the character's name. Is
yes.
Panowski.
Yes.
Okay. I thought this guy looked familiar.
Mhm.
And he's been I recognize him from being on a couple of shows I used to watch. Like I saw him on Psych. He was on NCIS. He was on Star Trek Next Generation.
Uh-huh.
And I think I could be lying, but I think I saw him also on Stargate later on. And it may have been
Mm.
somebody else. But I was like, oh, I know this guy. And then when I looked up his IMDb, he's been in every show since the beginning of time. I mean, he's a character actor. He's got an extensive resume. And
He
I was like,
does. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now because the same for me. I was just like, I know this guy from somewhere. I totally
mm-hmm,
do. And I'm looking at it right now, and even though I'm not really recognizing any of the titles, at least that I have seen,
mm-hmm.
he's been in so many things.
He was on the L Word. I saw that. But
Oh, really?
since I never watched the L Word, I didn't want to be like, oh, I've seen him on the L Word.
Oh, he was an episode of CSI, which I love.
That makes you want to go back and check, watch their
I
episodes,
know.
you know? And he apparently, so he's a past poltergeist survivor.
Yeah.
And now he's some sort of aviation technician. I didn't really catch what he does.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But he was somehow able to get his hands on the cockpit recording of the plane that crashed that his friend was piloting.
Mm-hmm.
And so he plays the recording for Sam and Dean, and lo and behold, EVP.
EVP.
And it is outrageously creepy. It is, as always. And what does it say?
No survivors.
No survivors. And it's not just like no survivors. It's like no survivors.
How was that again?
And I'm not gonna do it again because it hurt my throat. Which I thought was funny because I was like, but there are survivors. And then Dan, Valerie, then Dean and Sam were like, but there are
Yeah.
survivors. So yeah, again, EVP, I hate it. I hate it's so never mind.
It's creepy. Yeah, you
It's
don't like it.
creepy.
You don't
It's
like
creepy.
it.
So this is when they decide that they need to get closer to not only the wreckage but to the people, the survivors
Yeah.
of the plane crash, seeing how, as this evil spirit was saying, there are no survivors, or there
Yeah.
will be no survivors. They're like, uh-oh, we need to talk
Yep.
to
So they get into investigative mode and go talk to the guy who actually watched the sweaty man open the
blow open the
door,
back of the yeah,
who has checked himself into a psych ward.
right. Can't blame him. Can't
No,
blame him for
not at
that.
all. Not at all. And Sam and Dean kind of do their good cop, bad cop routine. Because again, I made a note of Sam's bedside manner is still just so good.
It's very comforting, whereas
It
Dean's like
is.
super abrupt.
It is. And one of the boys mentioned it on the commentary too. They both just like, "Oh, here's our good cop, bad cop moment." So that was a little moment for me that I had wrote it down, and then later on I was like, "Haha, we're on the same page."
Did you notice one of the things that Dean, I think it was Dean, asked about, when they were asking about what did you see, or did you see anything out of the ordinary? And so when the young guy was describing what he did see, this man who walked to the back of the plane and opened the door,
Mhm.
his eyes were weird.
Mhm.
And Dean says, "Well, did he move like in a weird manner, like smooth?" And he mentioned something about like on your TV, and I was like, "Oh, you should have said glitched. Did
Yes.
he glitch?" Because that's what he was asking,
Yeah, yeah.
is if he was moving like a specter,
Yeah.
like a ghost.
Uh-huh.
I was like, that then Sam and Dean should have used the word glitch. Did he
Mm.
glitch?
Yep.
And he didn't, because he's a demon and not a ghost.
Right.
But I totally wrote, should have asked him if he glitched. And then, no, you can't open a door of a plane in flight. And so, with that information, Sam and Dean decide to impersonate or to infiltrate, I should say,
Mhm.
the hangar where the plane is being reconstructed, or put the puzzle pieces are being put together so they can investigate how the plane
Yes,
crashed.
yes. Right before that, they talk to. I mean, this is just such a brief scene, but they talk to the man who
Oh,
was
the
possessed,
wife.
his
Oh,
wife,
his wife, right.
very briefly. Just to say, because they're still trying to figure out what.
Why this guy was possessed
r-
by.
Well, they don't know it's a demon yet, right? So they're still trying to figure out what the hell the
Right,
monster is.
right, right, right,
So they're
right.
asking their
So,
usual questions. This is like, did he piss anybody off? Is there anything weird about him? Blah blah blah.
right.
And she's like,
How
"Oh,
long have
he's
you been
got acid
married?
reflux."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it's funny that they were married for 13 years.
Yeah, numbers. There's
Like,
some numbers in this
numbers.
in this episode.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a note about the color palette of this episode. I don't know if you noticed, but I feel like in Dead in the Water, it was really dark and
And
grungy
gray.
lighting and
Mm-hmm.
kind of muddy, if you will, or mucky, kind of colors of a deep dark lake.
Water. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
gross water. This one felt to me very gray, almost it looked like distressed almost or dusty. I
Sure.
don't know if I'm doing the right using the
Well,
right
sure, because
descriptive words, but
it wasn't like rainy gray. It was like, it wasn't like, oh, look, it's raining. It was
yeah,
just yeah, there was a quality to it.
desaturated. It was
Yeah.
desaturated, the color. And I noticed it after like when they're standing in his wife's yard and I was noticing all the greenery and stuff around them. It's just like, "Oh, this isn't green, it's like gray almost." It's definitely like a
Oh,
desaturated
oh,
color.
I didn't. I mean, now that you say it, I can totally see it, but I didn't
Mhm.
notice it while I was watching
Right.
it, which is good, because I was just
Right.
taking it all in.
Yes, yes. But I liked it. It kind of matched the theme of the episode for me, which I assume is what they were going for. But
Hmm.
mechanical things like the plane and things
Oh,
like that, it evoked that for me.
yeah, yeah. Wow, yay, production team.
Yeah.
um,
So moving on, yes, now they need to go inspect the actual wreckage.
and they buy their first suits. I wrote down first suits. And I love how they're like, so yeah, they buy these suits, and Dean says he feels like one of the Blues Brothers. And Sam's like, "You don't look like one of the Blues Brothers. You look like some seventh grader going on his first dance date."
Yeah. And I remember this scene from first watching it. It was just like, oh yeah, this is the scene where they buy the suits and then make fun of each other. I don't know why it stuck out to me as like a moment that I remember.
That's what I mean. And but they both of them do look incredibly uncomfortable in
They
these
do.
clothes.
They do.
And so they make it to they make their way past the guards, at this hangar, and they're inspecting. They're just looking around at the plane wreckage, and Dean has a homemade EMF
EMF.
detector.
Mm-hmm.
EMF. And what I love is Sam's like, that looks like an old Walkman. And I was like, yes, he said the word Walkman. And it is an old Walkman AM/FM cassette. I was thrilled. And I love how happy Dean was about it being a Walkman.
Yeah. It's like I
Um,
made it.
I made it.
He was so proud of his Walkman EMF.
Yes. The only thing that was missing out of that particular look was he had in earbuds. Dean put in
Oh.
earbuds so he could
Mm-hmm.
listen to the EMF ranges
Mm-hmm.
instead of like headphones.
Yeah.
Which like if he had put on headphones with the little orange fuzzies,
Uh-huh.
that would have been the perfect Walkman shout out.
Yeah.
But I was like, yes, very funny.
And
So
again,
happy.
humor from Dean, like that goofy little face that he did.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
But he's
really.
so proud of himself.
I know.
He's so proud of himself.
And then Sam shits on him for it. He's like, you
Right.
can tell he's so hurt.
Right now. Because it goes to the,
Jerk.
Sam is smarter. Yeah. I mean, Sam is book smarter, and Dean, who's always like the cool tough guy, when he finally is like, look what I did. It's like, yeah, you suck at that though, because look what you made it out of. You made a time machine out of a DeLorean. What were you thinking? So they also, this apparently, when they come across so Dean's like sniffing around with his EMF detector, and it leads him to the door of the plane that got blown off the back of the plane. And there's a substance on it, and they scrape the substance off of it, and they don't know what it is. Two things. Again, this is me being nitpicky. When the demon opened the door and it blew off the back of the plane, it blew off the back of the plane and miles, I'm sure, because then the plane stayed in the air for I don't know how many minutes and how many hundreds of miles before it actually crashed. I was like, there's no way that this door made it back to the hangar as part of the investigation, but maybe it did.
It could have.
It was just for
I'm
me,
sure
I was
it's like somebody was just there's a airplane door in my backyard. Did you lose this? Yes.
Yeah. Can you come get this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll let that go. But that
Okay.
was one of those. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the door handle is like covered in this like chalky whitish. To me, it looked like white substance, and they don't quite know what it is. Which, having seen the entire rest of the show, I'm like, it's sulfur. How do they not know it's sulfur? Oh, this is their first time discovering that demons leave behind sulfur. Which we discover it's sulfur because the airplane technician poltergeist victim guy happens to have a microscope
in his office.
He's right.
It's like, well, it's sulfur.
It's sulfur.
What does this guy
Take
do?
a look. I know.
Oh my god. I want to pause real quick because there's a funny story that Jared told in the commentary that you will appreciate as a production person.
Oh.
So this was regarding him scraping off the sulfur from the door. So he was telling so in production, there's usually, when it comes to sharps like this or weapons, there's usually two. There's one sharp one that we're not really allowed to touch or use, and a non-sharp one, which is usually what you see us like running around with and stuff like that. But he had to use the sharp one to scrape off the substance off the door. And he completely sliced his thumb. Like, majorly sliced his thumb.
Oh my gosh. And that's when I'm sure everybody's like, this is why we don't give you the real weapons.
Yes, and I think then he was just like, and this is why I'm not allowed to touch sharp things anymore.
Oh my gosh. The one thing that I'm always saying in rehearsal is don't touch the props,
Yes.
And There, people, even if it comes to weapons that we use, a lot of them are just toys. They look like
Yeah.
replicas and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'll tell people not to touch them or not use them. And they're like, "Why? But they're toys, or why? They're just replicas." And sure enough, somebody will hurt themselves
Yep.
with them. And I'm like, "This is why."
Yes. And sometimes they're not even just toys. I remember being in a production, remember when they were real knives but just taped up the
Taped.
blade so
Yep.
it wouldn't be quote unquote sharp
Sharp.
anymore?
Yes, that is a rehearsal trick, is to packing tape the edge of blades. And if you don't have packing tape, a lot of people just grab scotch tape, which is not quite as effective in
No.
dulling a
Uh-uh.
blade as you would think. Um, yeah. One side note, I remember telling performers they're not allowed to come on stage in a theater without closed-toed shoes. As
Mm.
part of like walking around and learning the set, you're not allowed on stage without shoes that completely cover your toes. And this girl walked up to me and she said, "I have a question." I said, "Stop! You don't have on closed-toed shoes. You need to go put on closed-toed shoes." She's like, "Yeah, but I just," and she took one more step and she kicked a corner of a piece of metal scenery and split open her toe.
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Okay." Well, it's like, I'll go get the first aid kit. I'll get the accident reports. I'll get the mop. I'm like, this is why I said no
Yes.
closed your. So, and that became the story of legends whenever a new cast came into that space. Like, remember
Uh-huh.
the time that Valerie said?
Yep.
Yeah, that's very funny though. I mean, it's not funny that he hurt himself, but
Right.
it's like, aha.
Yep.
Yeah.
But back to the sulfur discovery.
Yes.
Yes, I found it odd. It's like, what does this guy do? How does he automatically know if it's sulfur?
Bring
And then
the
he asks the
sulfur.
boys, just like, well, see for yourself. And then they look at it and they're like, oh yeah, it's sulfur. How
Oh
the
yeah.
hell do they know that?
By looking at the molecular breakdown of, yeah. I could tell you if it was an onion skin, because I remember we studied that in biology. What
Right.
does an onion skin look like under
Yeah, I have
your
no idea what sulfur is supposed
sulfur
to look
looks
like.
like?
I did
I mean,
look it up because I was curious.
you looked it
I
up.
did.
What does sulfur look like under a
Well,
microscope?
I don't know. They just said that it's a pale yellow, odorless solid.
Odorless?
Yes. The only time that it has that distinctive rotten egg smell is when it's in a gas compound form called it's hydrogen sulfide, I think, was the name
Oh.
of it. It's a fascinating element, I have to say.
Oh.
I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." I mean, granted, in this episode, they don't talk. I mean, spoiler alert. They don't talk about the odor, like the rotten egg smell, because
Right.
later on, that's how they identify the sulfur is they sniff it and they say, "Oh, it's sulfur,"
It's sulfur. Yeah.
which is
That's
now
how
I've
most
learned
people know
wrong.
sulfur. Because you light a match and that's the sulfur smell, and people just generally think sulfur smells.
Yes. Yeah, so I understand why for TV they did it that way, but I didn't know that it was incorrect until now when I just looked it up.
Thank you, Supernatural.
Yes, and I also was curious because they didn't quite explain why the sulfur would be there. They just automatically connected sulfur with
To demons.
demons, and they didn't really explain why, and I didn't know if it was supposed to be a widely known thing. I've never come across like the correlation
Demon
between
lore.
demons and sulfur. Yeah,
I think it's the connection to hell, Hades,
it is.
fire and
It's
brimstone.
yes, because it's they in ancient times they used to refer to sulfur as brimstone, and so then it's
Yeah.
in
So you're coming from hell. You stink of hell,
yeah, in a
and
biblical
you bring hell
reference,
with you.
the fires of hell are made from sulfur. So that was
Yes.
something new I learned.
Thank you, Supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a note. I said sulfur becomes old hat. it becomes
Yes.
just becomes a running theme.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of sulfur equals demon becomes just a given.
Yeah.
So I think the next thing that happens, the next thing we see is Chuck, the pilot, right from the original plane crash,
Mm-hmm.
is trying to work himself up to start flying again.
Yes.
And then he's talking to a buddy of his who says, "I'll fly with you," and they're talking about, I think, just going up in a small, like, Cessna, a small two-seater
Mm-hmm.
plane to kind of training wheels get himself back to flying again. And he's clearly still nervous about flying.
Yeah.
Not sure he wants to do this. Trying to psych himself up to go, they have a plane waiting for them to
Mhm.
for him to go up and fly again. So in the process of trying to psych himself up, we see the demon smoke again. The demon
Mhm.
smoke has now found the pilot and envelops, takes over this Chuck the pilot.
Yes.
So these two buckle up and take this small little plane up for a ride to, try to get his flying feet back under him. And 40 minutes into the flight,
Yeah,
Chuck the pilot
he
turns to
makes
his
a note of
buddy.
it and says, "How long
Yeah,
has it been?" 40
40
minutes.
minutes.
Wow, time really does fly, doesn't it?
And then
Boom,
proceeds
smash,
to
pow.
crashes the plane, killing the both of them.
Yeah.
Now, side note,
Uh-huh.
the actor who plays Chuck the pilot,
Uh-huh.
his name is Daryl Shuttleworth. He actually was the former president of the Canadian Virtual Airlines.
What?
It was a role playing simulator for pilots.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that great? Um, I was like, that's
That
crazy.
must have been on his special skills of his resume,
Right, you
like,
can fake fly a
yeah.
plane. So what's funny though about that, going into the reality of flying a plane, these two guys are in a cockpit of before he crashes it.
Yeah.
Of this little Cessna plane. Have you ever flown in a little
No.
two-seater plane?
Nope.
They are crazy loud. Crazy loud. You would not be flying one of those planes with no headset
Oh,
or just the little, boom
yeah.
mic single.
Uh-huh.
You need full coverage over your ears so that when you're speaking, you can actually hear what the other person is saying and what the
Oh.
tower is saying, because those planes are so loud. So that was, again, something else that took me out of the action, was seeing these two guys sitting in a plane and talking to each other
Uh-huh.
with only one of them on a headset.
Oh, I
And
didn't
even
and
that, yeah. See?
it didn't catch my radar because I don't know,
'Cause
I've never been in one of those
I
planes before.
yeah, I've got
How did
friends who
how did
fly.
Chuck the Pilot Simulator guy not know this?
Well, maybe he did know it, and the director said, "So what? We can't
No.
afford
Yeah, okay.
to put these two costume pieces on you."
Fair. Okay, so then after he crashes the plane, again, I've written down serial killer research time because they have all of the, like the papers and stuff behind them, like the set dressing, of course is
Still part of their
yeah,
MO.
yes.
But a technician guy calls Sam and Dean again and
Mhm.
interrupts them and says, "Hey, Chuck, my buddy, the pilot who survived just died in a plane crash." And is that when Dean and Sam discover that the demon that says no survivors is actually now trying to kill off everybody who survived the plane crash?
Yeah, it was kind of bridged between the scene of them in the hotel room doing the research and kind of figuring out that it's a demon. And they say something like, according to Japanese legend, there are some demons that are associated with natural disasters and things like that. So this one must be up with the times, they say, and like, or now
Hmm.
reverting to plane crashes instead of just like earthquakes and things like that. I did
Right.
try to look that up and see if it was true, and I mean, that would take months and months and months of research, I think,
Right.
getting into Japanese folklore.
Right.
I wasn't ready for that. But then, yes, when they're in the guy's office, in Jason's office, then they say, ah, but his plane crashed exactly 40 minutes in, just like the other plane did.
Hmm. And but this is also when they kind of define what a demon is, like versus a ghost, demon versus a ghost,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they say demons do evil for their own sake. It's not
Yeah.
like a tortured soul, somebody who was wronged in life
Hmm.
becomes a ghost.
Hmm.
Demons literally just exist to do evil for their own, just
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
um which is news to us as well.
Yeah, exactly. And say this episode is kind of pivotal in that they're introducing demons into their storyline because, spoiler alert, demons become a huge
Huge.
part of many storylines that,
Mhm.
as the seasons progress.
Yeah,
But
threaded throughout. Yeah.
yeah. So, but especially this first chunk, the first 5 seasons, this was definitely pivotal point in that they're, even the brothers are like, we've never dealt with anything like this before. We're used to just like ghosts and weird monsters and things like that. We've never dealt with something as big as a demon.
Mhm.
Foreshadowing, foreshadowing.
But so in all of this discovery, because it's just these next few scenes are just discovery about,
Mm-hmm.
why are the planes crashing? Why are people dying? Why are demons? And then going back to your numbers
Yeah.
revelation, that 40, they say when they discovered that each time these planes crashed, it's been 40 minutes into the flight. What
Mm-hmm.
does the number 40 have to do with anything? And Dean mentions it's biblical that, the 40 days and 40 nights of floods equals death. The number 40 equals death.
Yes, which is not exactly, well, it's kind of true, yes, but because I did look it up a little bit about the number 40.
You look it up a little bit.
Uh, it's just
You
the
didn't do a
number.
deep dive.
I
Okay.
didn't do it. I did a shallow dive.
Okay.
And there was one I came across. This is from Reader's Digest, and it just kind of lists off like the bizarre things about the number 40, and it's not all just evil. It's just 40 is kind of a recurring number all around.
Huh.
So the average length of a pregnancy is 40 weeks.
Oh.
40 below is the only temperature that is the same in both Fahrenheit and Celsius.
I
Hmm.
didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Oh.
40 is the number of thieves that Alibaba clashes with in Arabian Nights. And here it does say, 40 seems to be shorthand for a long time in religion because Jesus spent 40 days fasting. The Great Flood lasted 40 days, 40 nights. Jewish
Okay.
people wandered the desert for 40
40
years.
days. Oh my gosh.
This one is very apropos for these times. But when the bubonic plague gripped Europe during the Middle Ages, ships would be isolated in harbor for 40 days before passengers could go ashore. The Italian word for 40 is quaranta, hence
Quarantine.
quarantine.
Well, thank God we're not actually, staying true to the word, to the definition of the word, because we think 14 days was a long time. Can you
Uh,
imagine? I mean, granted, it's been longer
it's
than
been
14
almost a
days,
year.
but individuals, we'll just say individuals who actually find themselves in quote quarantine
Yeah,
for exposure, it's 14 days and not 40 days. So
yeah.
hooray for that. I was going to mention with the 40 minutes into each flight being like that's when things go happen. Again, going back to I fly a lot and
Hmm.
I am not going to be happy during the first 40 minutes of any flight at this point. It's just one of those, now it's going to be in my head.
Oh, that's
It's going to
funny.
be in my head. So thank
Womp
you,
womp. Yeah,
Supernatural.
thanks, Supernatural.
Oh, on a art imitates life incident, Jensen, Misha, Alexander, and Richard Spate Jr. were on a plane together when one of the engines exploded and they had to emergency land.
That's
I
right.
don't know if that happened 40 minutes into their
Yeah.
flight,
Oh my God.
but I think after that, Jensen said he would never fly again. Um,
I was watching like a Zoom thing with Misha, with like a bunch of the actors and stuff. And Misha was one of them, and Richard was one of them. And during the filming of one of the last few episodes of season 15,
mhm.
it was like something momentous happened after the filming, and then they get on this plane and it almost crashes. So it was like something that tied in with the episode. I think maybe it was Misha's last filming day.
Oh, so going back to this
Yeah.
episode. So now Dean and Sam have figured out that surviving passengers or surviving people from that first plane crash are now dying,
Yeah.
and they think that they find out that there's a stewardess. I think they call everybody, right? They've got a passenger manifest, and they're calling everybody to
Uh-huh.
make sure that they're not flying anytime
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Except they do find that the stewardess on that first flight is actually still working and flying.
Flight
So
attendant.
yeah, but they call her a
They do,
stewardess
and
on
it kind of like
this.
pulled me back. I was
It
like, "Oh my
irked
God,
you.
I haven't
It
heard that word in such a long time."
Yes, every time they said it, I was like, flight
Ooh,
attendant.
yeah, flight attendant. Is that the right one?
Um, there's a couple of those isms in this because of just airport protocols
Yeah.
nowadays.
Uh-huh.
Then I was like, really? They were able to bring holy water on the plane? I don't think
Oh,
so.
yeah. Yeah.
You
Although
know,
this was after 2001.
yes, it was.
Hmm.
So,
Somehow they snuck it on.
yep. So they go to the airport to try to, because they can't reach the stewardess,
Mhm.
flight attendant. So they go to the airport to try to stop her from getting on a plane and flying.
Yeah.
And when they can't find her, they decide to use the white courtesy phone.
I have never seen one of those before.
Oh my gosh, that is such an 80s thing.
I've never seen
Nope.
one of those before.
Passenger so and so, please pick up the white courtesy phone. I don't know if those still exist, so I'm
Well,
only laughing.
yeah, it might have.
I
I don't know, because in the commentary, they said this is the actual terminal that they fly out of when they're filming. When they fly in to
Oh,
film
really?
in Vancouver, or is it Vancouver, right? That
Yeah.
they film in? Yeah. So this is the airport that Jared and Jensen use,
Oh
and
my
like the crew
gosh.
and stuff. So they were filming inside of this airport. They
That's too
may have
funny.
added the phone in, for a
How hard is it to stick a
prop.
phone to
Yeah, exactly.
a
But
wall? But I mean, the idea of the white courtesy phone is real. Um, I just don't, the chances of them actually catching her,
right.
uh, but did you hear what when she finally does? They do page her, and she picks up the white courtesy phone.
Yeah.
And did you hear what name he used when he said, "Hi, this is so and so"?
Oh, crap. No, I didn't write it down. I don't
James
remember.
Hetfield. Do you know who
I
James
don't know
Hetfield
who that
is?
is.
It's the lead singer of Metallica.
Oh.
And also
Ah.
the name of the snake my roommate had my
Oh my
senior year of college,
God.
as an
I
aside.
I feel like I should have known that. I don't
And did you
know.
happen to notice what gate she was standing at when she answered the phone,
Was
the
it
white courtesy
was
phone?
it 13?
It was gate
Yeah.
13. I was just like, I wrote down gate 13, subtle.
Yeah.
Oh. But here's where we also learn that Dean is afraid to fly.
Yes.
I was like, how could I not remember that? He's like,
I don't
why do you
remember it
think I
either.
drive everywhere? It's
Oh
like,
my
oh
God, I never
yeah.
even thought about that. I don't remember this revelation or this character trait at all about Dean.
Right. Like this, you wouldn't have kept this with you as the episodes move forward. You wouldn't be like, oh, that's right, he doesn't like to fly.
Yeah.
It's just he's got, a sweet baby car and they drive.
Yep.
That's what they do.
Yep.
How boring would the show have been if all they do is get
Just
on a
fly.
plane and fly to their destinations? You're like, this is the worst show ever.
Yeah.
It's just
Just
them
get on
doing
a plane.
exposition, sitting next to each other on a plane
Yeah.
while getting served.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so they can't convince the flight attendant to not get on the plane.
Yeah.
His being James Hetfield does not convince her that she should not fly. And so their big decision is to then get on the plane to try to find the demon,
Mhm.
exorcise the demon once they're in the air.
Yeah.
And that's when we find out that Dean doesn't like to fly. And what's funny is that he's so hesitant
Yeah, he's like,
to admit that.
"Oh."
Yeah, it's like, Sam says, "Do you have a problem?" He's like, Yes, yes, I do. I don't like to fly." So I had a question though. Why was Sam so relaxed in coming up with this plan of we should just get on a plane and exorcise the demon while we're on the plane? And he doesn't seem to have a problem with this, whereas Dean has several problems with it. He just seems a little too relaxed. I mean, later we hear him say you have to be relaxed or else the demon can actually
Yeah.
find you and possess you
Yeah.
because you're in such a
Yeah.
turmoil state.
Yeah. Sam lays down the law later with Dean. He's just like, you need to calm
Calm
down. You
your
need to stop, or
Yep.
the demon's going to get inside of you. I don't know. I just felt like, Sam is just fine with flying, and he's just like, yeah, okay, this is the next step that we need to do, And he seems so relaxed, maybe compared to Dean, who's throwing a fit about getting on a plane.
Right. Well, but I mean, I guess my question is like, why is he so getting on a plane? You have a 50-50 chance at this point that the demon is going to crash this plane.
Oh, I see. I see.
And so they're getting on a plane
That's
that
about
if
to
they
crash.
fail to find and, exercise this demon, it's going to crash
Right.
because the demon is killing off all survivors.
I see.
And this flight attendant is now on that plane. So that's where I was like, why is he so relaxed? But maybe he's just a cool cucumber.
He could be. He could
He's
be, and
just
he
a
knows that this
cool.
is the thing that he needs to do. Because if he doesn't, then you know, dozens of people are gonna die in a
I did right.
crash.
I did right. You're open to demonic possession if you're not calm. Now, so I answered my own
Yeah.
question in my notes. ah, okay. So they get on the plane
hmm
and they take off, and they now know that they only have 40 minutes to find and exorcise this demon. Now, do they at this point don't know where it is? They think it's possibly in the stewardess, right?
Yes, yes, because then Dean goes back there, and they're doing a couple little tricks to try and draw the demon out.
Mhm.
One idea is thrown out. It's like, let's splash holy water on her. It's like, no, that's a bad idea. And the other one is the demon will, I think the words were flinch at the name of
Flinch.
God or the mention
Mhm.
of God. So
Yep.
they use the Latin word, Christo.
I do think it's funny though that Sam is like, and don't forget it's Cristo, and Dean's like,
Mhm.
I'm not stupid. Even though he's clearly having issues about being on a
Yes.
plane and he is acting quite flibberty gibberty.
Yes. So they run all these tests on the flight attendant. Oh my God. Amanda? Was that the character's
Amanda.
name? Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing. And
And
then,
she doesn't respond. Yeah.
no, she's like, okay, you weirdo.
She's actually afraid to fly as well, which is what
Yes.
Dean learns. But she's also so incredibly calm and self-possessed about it that he's like, there's no way any demon is ever going to possess
Right.
her.
Yeah. So then there's a cheap jump shot, I thought. Where Dean was walking down the aisle and then Sam like grabs him on the shoulder real quick. I did.
Right.
I jumped a little bit. I was just like, "Huh."
And he's like,
No,
and
that was cheap. That was a
cheap.
cheap jump shot.
Yeah. Dean's like, don't do that. They figure out it's not the stewardess, but they need to talk to the stewardess to figure out who it is. How do they figure out?
That it's the pilot?
Yeah, or the co-pilot or whatever. Yeah. Did they see him? Like, did they see his eyes? Like he's coming out of the bathroom and they just happen to see his eyes and then say Cristo and he responds
No, they don't see his eyes until he says Cristo.
with the black
I
eyes.
can't remember
Okay.
why they suspect him.
Hmm.
Oh, he's got the EMF holder in his hand.
That's right.
That's why
Thank you.
he's walking
Thank
down the
you.
aisle with the EMF
Looking for the
thing.
demon. Okay.
Yes, and then it gets stronger once the
When the
co-pilot comes out
pilot comes
of
out of
the
the
room. Mhm.
bathroom. Okay. And then he says Cristo.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And they're like, oh, that's
Shit.
the guy.
Yep.
So they in trying to formulate a plan, they run back to the flight attendant to see if there's anything she can do to entice the pilot back to them so that they can exorcise this demon.
Yes.
And what I love is they're rushed because they have less than 40 minutes now to
Yeah.
exercise this demon. They say to the stewardess, "We don't have time for the truth is out there moment."
Yeah.
And I literally put my hands in the air and I was like, yes. And that is flat out X Files. So I
Yeah.
just want to, that was the poster. The truth is out. That was
Yeah.
that was Mulder. That was all X Files, all right there.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
thank you for that. A note about the actress.
I
Did
didn't
you
rec
look her up at
I
all?
didn't. I only look them up if I recognize them. I did not recognize her.
I recognized her again as I thought she was, a character actress. So I just wanted to see, what else I had seen her in. NCIS, um, The Bates Motel, Punisher, Drop Dead Diva. I think I recognized her from like NCIS. She just has one of those like classically pretty faces.
Yeah.
Um, she is an Academy Award winning producer,
Oh,
right?
fantastic.
Yeah, she and her husband, I think, won an Academy Award for a short, was a best live action short called Skin. It won a couple
Hmm.
of awards before it made it into the Academy Awards, but it won for best live action short. So, I mean,
Very cool.
she's a producer.
What's
Hmm?
her name?
Jamie Ray Newman. I mean, she's massively talented, and I thought she did a great job
Yeah, I think so too.
um, as a likable flight attendant
Yes.
who is not possessed by a demon.
No, but watches someone who is, gets exercised, and doesn't know what the hell is actually going on.
Right.
That would be terrifying, I think. You'd be like, okay, I'm gonna bring the
You
guy
said you
back
were gonna
here,
to talk. You
and
said you
then they
just want to talk to him.
and then they throw him down on the ground, start shouting in Latin,
They tape his
and
mouth shut.
he's
They
burning, from water. It's just, I would be terrified.
Yes, but she does do the right thing and lets them do their work, which is not always the case. There's always somebody who will interfere with the good work of heroes because they don't understand. But she did not. She let them do it. So while this is happening, there's I mean, they're exercising this demon. They've grabbed the pilot. They've taped his mouth shut. They're pouring water on him, or holy water on him. They're speaking Latin, the exorcism.
Hmm.
Um, does the plane start to crash? And if so, why is it windy now? Like suddenly things are blowing around, blowing away, like inside the plane. Like in all this commotion, the dad's journal gets like knocked out of the way because they were using it to read the exorcism
Yeah.
from. And in all this commotion, it gets knocked down the aisle and kicked under somebody's seat. So as Sam is running down the aisle to try to get his hands back on the journal, I mean, like chaos in the cabin, wind
Right.
blowing, luggage
Well,
falling.
well, that's when they're describing like how to do exorcisms earlier in the episode. They do mention at one point it becomes at its most powerful and then no longer needs a host to cause trouble. So it's like right towards the end of the exorcism is when the demon is kind of at its worst, so to speak.
So it's no longer in the body.
It's no longer in the body, yeah.
It's possessed the plane
Yes,
itself.
it's just kind of out there doing its thing.
Okay. So on a side funny note, during
Mhm.
all of this chaos,
Mhm.
when Sam is trying to get his hands back on the journal, Dean is pressed up against the side of the plane, terrified.
Yes.
He is absolutely frozen with horror and terror. And he's just like, look on his face, he's just like,
Yeah.
and it's that comical, I'm scared face.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's done with the exorcism, but now he is terrified of dying in this
Uh-huh.
plane.
Uh-huh.
Which I was like, Dean terrified is kind of funny. Okay, so thank you for explaining that to me because I was like, why is it windy? I was like, did
Right.
someone open a window? What's going on? Okay, but it was the demon possessing the plane and making it chaotic and making it so that
Yes, yes. It's
Sam couldn't
basically
fully complete the exorcism
yes, yes. It was basically it's his last chance
to crash the plane.
to crash the plane and not be exercised and not go back to hell.
I get it.
Ah,
I'm there. Thank you, Sammy.
you are welcome.
Thank you, because that was a big question for me. So my last question is why did the demon choose the pilot in the first place? This pilot. Because if it possesses people who are open to being possessed, meaning,
Mhm.
they're disquieted,
Mm.
there's something upset. Like I wonder if there was a part of a story we didn't know about this pilot that like
Oh,
got cut for
probably.
timing or something because at the end when everyone is getting off the plane and the guy's being interviewed by paramedics, he's like, I don't remember even getting on the plane. I
Right.
remember being here in the terminal. And that's the last thing I remember. So he was there to fly a plane.
Right.
So he wasn't showing any just quiet about what his job was. So that was my question is why did the demon choose the
Choose
pilot?
him.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, and I don't think it's important, but going with the storyline of it possessing people who have, issues.
You're right. I don't know. And there were some deleted scenes in this episode that I did not watch. Maybe it's in there, or maybe it was just a convenient person to possess.
Sure. It was a person, a figure of authority. It'd be hard to get him to the back of the plane.
I know
Gotcha.
maybe as a character backstory, maybe he was just having a bad day at home.
Bad day. Like maybe he had a fight with somebody on the phone
Yeah,
before,
maybe.
he had a fight on the white courtesy phone before
Maybe.
he boarded the plane. Okay. So the plane lands.
The plane lands. But also, I want to make a note that the demon knew about Jessica when they're exercising him, and he's going like psychotic, and crazy.
Oh, that's right.
Then he like brings up Jessica,
He's like, "I saw your girlfriend die,
Yeah.
tortured," and yeah,
Which was that was would be creepy,
yeah,
think, "Oh my god, this evil thing that I'm trying to kill
knows
knows."
something. Is that maybe that's why Sam stopped in mid exorcism because he was
I
like,
would
"Oh, I
I
need
would
to ask."
assume so, yeah. He's
Yeah,
like,
and then
yeah.
that's when he lost control. That's
Yeah.
when like the journal got kicked
Uh-huh.
and aha. So
Mhm.
I think a part of him wanted to not fully exercise the demon because it would have known about Jess.
Right. Oh, sorry. I wanted to mention something from the commentary, but during the Latin exorcism scene, Jared had a Latin coach because he wanted to take it really seriously and like
Hmm.
say it the correct way and say the correct words. But he's also just like, do I just look like an idiot doing this to the director? I would probably feel that way, if I were an actor standing over somebody and just screaming Latin words.
Words
And
that
if
don't, yeah.
and of course, on set, there's no music behind you. There's like all of those things get added later to really spice it up. But there on set, you're just standing above somebody going, Porita Cristo, or whatever the words are.
Right. Right. Well, especially Latin, which is a dead language and nobody knows
Mm-hmm.
how to truly speak it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I get that. You want it to be real, but how? You can't have somebody be like, "No, no, no, put the emphasis on this word,
Yeah.
on this instead of that," because we don't know. It's
Yeah.
a dead
I
language.
just appreciated that he had a coach
Mhm.
and get it right. So,
That's awesome. Unlike some shows where even a dialect is so horribly mangled. It's like, "Oh, stop."
yes.
If you're not gonna hire an Irish actor to do Irish dialogue,
I know.
don't have Americans do
yeah.
it. But yeah, oh, that's interesting. Was there anything else on the other than them ribbing on each other?
Yeah, there was Jensen was so generous with his compliments to all of the production staff. And it was really touching. He would always be like, "Man, I just really got to give it up for like these camera guys and the crew and the special effects." And he kind of like went on about like two or three little complimentary rants. Not rants, but like
Little tangents, yeah.
tangents, yeah, exactly. Just being like, man, Robert Singer, the director, got, they're just like, they loved him, and they were talking about what a great job he does and his style, and that was just, it was nice. It was nice for an actor to thank the sometimes thankless parts of
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, acknowledge that there are other people on the other side of the camera, who's without them the show doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Everybody plays a part and it's not just all about the people in front and the people behind the camera affect the performance.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have to trust your colleagues and your team and trust that you screaming Latin over somebody
Yeah.
may feel ridiculous in the moment, but
Uh-huh.
when put together with all the other elements,
Mm-hmm.
that it becomes, an artistic vision and a scene that people want to watch, and that's great. You don't hear that enough. You really don't.
Right.
Although at the same time, there's people in the theater world who always say, why don't you as a stage manager like take a bow? You work so hard, the show doesn't happen without you. It's like, yeah, but we knew that going into it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here for the bow. The audience doesn't need to see us.
Mm-hmm.
um and it's not that we don't matter to the audience because they obviously know that there's people quote behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not why we do the job we do, which is the same thing I'm sure in the film world, which is they're not there for the accolades, they're there
Yeah.
for the project, they're there for the completion
Yeah.
of the event.
Mm-hmm.
So
So that was nice. And other than that, it was just jokes all around.
I like jokes all around.
No, it was very funny, but and I like getting to know their personalities as Jensen and Jared versus
Hmm.
Sam and Dean.
Yeah.
But I think I've mentioned this to you before. I actually find commentaries by the actors less interesting,
Right.
unless uh unless there's like a writer or the director with them, or if it's
Hmm.
just the writer or director, because then you really get to know like what actually went into the making of whatever
Right.
that scene was or the story or what have you. And the
Hmm.
actors are fun and funny, but I don't know if I would say they provided any insightful
insight into the show.
except for
Yeah.
the Jared slicing his thumb open story,
Oh
you
my
know?
gosh.
There are little stories like that, like acting stories, which I also find funny and interesting, having been someone who's I mean, it's been a long time since I've acted, but no, you do you have those stories too, which are fun.
I love all behind the scenes stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I love it when the things happen correctly. I love to hear when things didn't quite work out, as long as it
Uh-huh.
works out, doesn't work out in a funny way and not in a I sliced my thumb off kind of way. It's nice to hear the process,
Yes.
everything,
Yeah.
the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, the dramatic.
Yeah, I agree. Back to the episode. We're almost done.
Okay.
So the plane lands. The medics are talking to everybody who's surviving. Amanda, the flight attendant, gives like a little thank you to the boys, and then that's that as far as the crash.
Yep. There's no girlfriend interaction there. There is no
No,
she doesn't become a Dean and Sam groupie. There's
right.
no kiss. There's
Nope.
no
Just a see you later. Bye.
that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they're
For
walking back
her.
to they're in the so towards the end of the episode they're walking back to their car with Jason or Jerry.
Jerry Panowski.
And then they're like asking him questions about their dad. It's like, oh, so when did you speak to him? And he says, oh, I didn't. I just got his voice message to said to call you. And then he leaves. And then they sit on the car and they're confused and they're, I would say, hurt.
Right.
Because like especially after once they call their dad's number, which fun fact, 785 is actually a Kansas area code, and I had a phone number with the area code 785.
Oh my gosh.
So that was like,
Yee.
Kansas.
It's true. It's true.
Yes. The
Oh my gosh.
555 obviously was not
Right.
anything,
Right.
but
But the Jerry character says, I called you guys because when I first tried to reach your dad, his message said on his phone to call you.
right. Which
Um,
I guess they haven't really called their dad in a while. Or maybe
because when
it
they did try his number, it doesn't work.
right. So then now they do, and they hear call my son Dean at blah 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 blah. And so this I saw in Sam's face at least kind of like a hint of betrayal almost. It's like if their dad is alive and fine,
Changed
and
the message.
yeah, he took the
Yep.
time to change the message, but not the time to call them and say, "Hey, I'm
I'm
alive."
alive. Yep, yep. So we're figuring out that, dad is there's something wrong. There's something up, there's something wrong.
Mhm.
And not as in like, oh, he's in trouble. It's there's dad isn't being a dad.
Yeah.
He's not being a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something fishy going on here.
Yes, fishy. But good point. I may have missed the subtlety of Sam's reaction. I do remember thinking, so they were both shocked that this is a new message. This is a new
Yeah.
outgoing message. And not only is it a new message, but it's dad handing off the family business to
Mhm.
Dean,
Yeah.
saying, I can't help you, but my son can. And
Yeah.
it's not just them thinking that that's what's happening. It's him clearly
Oh, yeah.
making them shoulder now
Yeah.
all responsibility
It's
of
absolutely
being hunters.
confirmation. And then we end the episode with the baby driving into the sunset.
Yes, we still don't know that it's baby. I mean, we know it's the car, but
Yeah. The
baby
Impala.
hasn't been named
Right.
baby yet, but we still love it.
Mhm.
And it still has the sharp and pointy door locks. That car, those boys in that car. Oh, it again would be completely different if they were getting on a plane and flying off
Yeah. Yeah.
going back home. Watching them like recline their seat back, fasten their seatbelt.
Yeah. Okay, so we decided last time we were gonna do or try like a little Twitter recap, a recap of our recap, and I did it
Because
last
oh my
time.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the how many characters? 144? That's what we're allowed?
Oh no, it's like 260,
Oh,
280 maybe. I don't know.
okay. So if I made this a run-on sentence, like with no spaces after a period, I think I might be able to make it. But here is my Twitter version of a description of this episode.
Okay.
What is it? The something traveler? The
Phantom Traveler.
I was like the uneasy traveler, the queasy traveler. Phantom Traveler. A poltergeist victim airplane technician reaches out for Sam and Dean's help when a plane piloted by a friend crashes. He hears EVP on the cockpit voice recorder. Afraid to fly, Dean can still exorcise a demon on a plane to save a stewardess who survived the first plane crash.
Very nice.
That was my shortened one.
Yeah.
that was my completely abbreviated, and that made it under the limit. So
Okay, great.
let me
It
see
was
if I
good.
can find just for you. I did save the other one. The one that is incorrect. This is the one that was
on
this is the
Netflix.
yeah, this is the descriptor.
Oh, okay.
A friend of Dean's calls him up when a plane crashes under mysterious circumstances. Dean and Sam soon discover a flight attendant who was on the plane, but do not realize her full connection to the crash until they are on board another flight with her, which is wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
They get on the plane because of her.
Yeah. Netflix, what are you
Right?
doing?
Right? And they say he's a friend of Dean's. He's really not. I mean,
No.
Dean did do a job with him, but they know him through their dad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I got to the end of it, I was like, well, that's not right.
Right.
I think they realize the connection before they get on the plane.
Yeah.
So I win.
Yay.
Description's better.
All right, everyone. So that's going to wrap up our rewatch of episode 4, Phantom Traveler. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe if you are not already. We also have some social media channels up. At Salt and Burn This Pod for Instagram and at Salt and Burn This on Twitter because I could not fit the pod on the Twitter handle. Too many characters.
Couldn't fit the pod. That's
Couldn't fit the pod. It's fine. So thank you, and please join us next week for Bloody Mary. I think it's Bloody Mary, isn't it?
It is Bloody Mary.
Oh my god.
And that's gonna scare the crap out of me.
It is. That was one of the only urban legends of my childhood that really...
I can't wait to hear how this episode affects you.
Oh god.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to Salt and Burn This.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.